Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. And today we have another brand new set of crazy revenge stories for you. But before we begin, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story is getting a protected species off the list. If you've ever worked in a cafe and you know who the protected species are, they're usually blonde, female, and hot. They get the cushier jobs like barista or waitress, and they get paid to bat their eyelashes and look pretty and not much else. For some reason, they never have to help the other staff clean and pack down the establishment at the end of a shift. They never, and I mean never, have to clean the toilets. In fact, you never really see them do anything except text on their phone and be rude to customers. Usually the boss wants to F them, so they get away with not working. I got so sick of the protected species at one of my jobs because she'd leave earlier than me every day and leave all the cleaning and packing down for me to do, even though we were meant to share the job equally. I mentioned it to the boss, and he pretended to take it on board, and nothing was ever said or done about it. She continued to show up, not work, collect money, then hit the beach. If only we all could be kissed on the butt by financially stable neo-hippie parents and surf through life on a sea of coconut oil and kale smoothies. The final straw came when she made me empty her coffee bin after standing there texting on her phone and watching me clean the entire cafe by myself. We had 4 seating areas and an outdoor courtyard that needed attending to. That's a lot of furniture, umbrellas, heavy signs, and flower pots to carry and store inside, as well as mopping, vacuuming, cleaning down all the furniture, and packing down and cleaning the front of the house equipment. One day I got to work a few minutes before her, and I punched holes in the bottom of a fresh bin bag and set up her coffee bin for the day. Usually I work very clean and efficiently. I put everything away after using it, refill items that are running low, and wipe down my workspaces. This day I did the kinds of things she would do. I left everything out and messy. I let everything, including the floor, get sticky when I made the fresh squeezed juices. I deliberately left spilled milk around the milkshake mixers. I didn't refill the cakes in the display fridge. I made sure I got coffee grind under my shoes and tracked it all over the sticky tiles. I didn't cut up the fruit to refill the tubs. I didn't refill anything. Then, 45 minutes before the cafe was due to close, I quietly slipped into the little office out back and told my boss I was having lady problems and needed to leave early. I rarely took sick days and always came in early and worked back late. He didn't question it and told me to go home and take care of myself. I slipped out the back without saying goodbye. When I got to work the next day, I found out she had pulled the bag out of the coffee bin and all the filthy grind and watery black slop went all over her shoes and the tiles she'd just mopped. She had to stay back and clean it up and mop the floor a second time. She had to clean and pack down the entire cafe by herself, and it was 10 times filthier than it usually was because I hadn't been giving a F all day. It took her almost 2 hours to do it all, and by the end she was covered in filth, sweating, and cursing about it. Little Precious couldn't handle putting in any elbow grease, and she was crap at her job. This became obvious to my boss, finally. He was not impressed that it took her so long to pack down. She tried to complain about me leaving early and leaving it all for her, and he pointed out that she often does the same thing to me, only it doesn't take me anywhere near as long to do my job. Anytime she worked with me after that, the boss made sure she did half the work. She hated it, and she hated me. It was obvious. I tried not to look too smug about it. She didn't last there too much longer. All you did was make her do her job and ruined her evening and changed how she worked with you. Bravo! And our next story. Audible bang. I worked for a safety agency for over a decade. It was a small organization, nothing fancy, and we rarely saw danger save for the occasional old couple that would park in our empty lot and have sex. If you've ever seen a wrinkly pair of bodies intertwined on a high-resolution camera, you'd understand the danger I had to face. And I digress. At any rate, when I started with the organization, it was well organized, all files were meticulously kept, the golf carts and cameras were in pristine condition, and everyone was well trained in safety. It was an excellent 5 years until the Mercy Healthcare Act hit, and all of us temp employees, yes, I was a temp for a decade, were told that we were only allowed to work 24 hours a week so that the company could avoid paying for health insurance. I stayed as I had finally decided to finish school. It was still a decent job and decent pay and was perfect for allowing me time to get my homework done. 2 years later, I get my associate's degree and started my bachelor's. And that's when the new boss was hired for my shift. We'll call him Billy Bob. Billy Bob was a narcissistic, misogynistic egomaniac. Generally, he hid in his office the entire shift, so I rarely had to interact with him, until one day I was going through the paperwork and I found out that our new hires had never undergone any training that was required by both company policy and an accreditation system that we partnered with. I had an oh no moment and began making phone calls to set up the training, apologizing for the oversight. That was not mine, as Billy Bob should have done it, and organized the training with the employees. When Billy Bob came back from his lunch break, my heart rate was returning to normal. I informed him, without blaming him mind you, that our new employees needed to go through the training. I took him through what I'd done, he nodded at me, patted my head, and walked away. I thought that was it. Nope. 2 days later, I'm sitting in HR being handed an improvement plan for insubordination. What? Apparently, I had undermined poor Billy Bob and made him look stupid. He looked me dead in the eye and said that my only job was to sit at the front desk and enter the data from the security agents on patrol. Oh, and take phone calls and answer questions. I was livid. I took a deep breath, smiled sweetly at HR lady who knew me well and said I would not make that mistake again. I immediately put in my 2 weeks' notice. Billy Bob smiled. If he only knew. The next 2 weeks were the easiest weeks of my life. I did exactly what Billy Bob told me to do. No other paperwork was filed. All the lost and found that was turned in was sitting in a pile behind me. None of the cameras were calibrated. The emergency test was never conducted. The fire alarms were not tested. The broken down golf cart was never fixed. None of the fix-it tickets for maintenance were submitted. And all the while, Billy Bob was on vacation. Perfect. The day he was back to work was my last day. I decided to leave with an audible bang. You see, I was the last employee there who'd been given the training on all the systems. Every time I attempted to teach a newcomer, we had a huge turnover because of Billy Bob, I'd be told that Billy Bob would teach them later. He never did, because he never let me teach him. I had all the codes for the command center. I knew what key went to what locker. Basically, the moment I left, he would be screwed. So I made it worse. I set the fire alarm test to go off the minute I was to clock out for the day. I was bouncing with anticipation as my fingers hovered over the clock out button. As soon as the alarm started going off, I hit the button, grabbed my stuff, and headed for the door. Billy Bob comes tearing from his office, shouting at me to turn it off. I shouted back, "Sorry, I'm officially no longer your employee. Have fun," and I tossed all the keys on the counter. The look on his face was priceless as I danced out the door. I could still hear the alarms in my car a half-mile away. Glorious. And our last story. Customer is not always right in my field. So I'm an ASE certified mechanic. I've been wrenching for 22 years. This story happened way back when I was still an oil change tech and learning my way. This customer comes in one day and wants us to look at his brakes and put some pads on the car that he brought. The shop manager had me bring the car in to look at. I pull the car into the shop. It's grinding real bad when I hit the brakes. I know it's more than a pad job. So the car goes up, the tires come off, and sure enough, he let his brakes go for so long there's no more brake surface on the rotors. He'd wore them down to the cooling fins in the middle of the rotor. I, of course, tell my manager. Well, he told the customer, a crotchety old man, the situation and explains he needs new rotors. We even took him out and showed him there's really no rotor left at all. Naturally, the guy gets super PO'd, says we're trying to get more money out of him. We better just do what he wants or he's going somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. My manager takes it all in as cool as a cucumber. When dude was finished, my manager did the nicest thing I had ever seen. He calmly explained that the vehicle needed to be repaired correctly or he would red flag the car as it was unsafe to drive. Old boy looked like he was going to explode. Threatened to call the cops if we didn't return his vehicle. We were just crooks and the whole 9 yards. My boss said it's cool, I'll call them for you. He called in the State Highway Patrol, showed them the car in front of the customer. They looked at him and said, "This car is unsafe for the road. He either fixes it correctly or has to tow it out of our shop if he wants to go somewhere else because they're not going to let it on the road." The sad thing is he ended up paying to have it towed out a few days later, which I'm sure cost more than the $40 for new rotors. I don't know if he got it fixed right or not. Most wrenches out there just want your car to be safe. We run on the same roads. I didn't know at the time, but I do now. We do have the authority to lock your car down if it's completely unsafe for the road until it's fixed correctly or towed somewhere else to get fixed correctly. I love what I do because I make the roads safer. I also work in a field where, no, the customer is not always right. The old man learned that the hard way. A few others in my career have as well. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.